11:50. So, give it up for Ben Patterson.
Yeah, thanks, y'all. I don't have a great loud voice, so if you're having trouble hearing me, just shout and I'll try to speak up and do better. It's great to see some of my new best friends out here in the audience already. I feel like I got to spend a lot of time with a couple of you guys. And great to hear the rest of you too. So I have a couple things I can talk about, or if you guys have something on your mind you want to talk about, just feel free to jump in. I thought I'd just get things started by talking about one topic that's kind of been on my mind lately, and we were thinking about this a little bit last night with the guys. But that's how we use rhythm and how we think about rhythm as jazz musicians, non-drummer jazz musicians particularly. I find that I think melodically and harmonically, jazz musicians are fairly advanced. We have kind of a specific way of thinking about things, and we spend a lot of time thinking about those things. Particularly harmony. I think seems like a lot of schools kind of based around the idea of getting your harmonic knowledge together. But what I think we tend to neglect is rhythm. I think really, I think if you go out and play with musicians from other parts of the world, Latin America or India, then you kind of start, I start to feel like almost illiterate as rhythmically, because some other cultures have they grow up with this complex rhythms, polyrhythms, all different kinds of things that we just we hear it and we might adapt to it a little bit in our playing, but we don't necessarily intentionally study it and try to improve that part of our playing. I kind of found that when I would hear myself play back sometimes on a recording or something, I would hear like I'm not playing like eighth notes or quarter notes. I'm playing something else. Could be triplets or or just something else. And it's like I just kind of thought of that as floating. I'm just kind of floating over the time. But then that kind of became less satisfactory to me after a while, because I really want to know what that is. What is it that I'm doing there? And I hear musicians that I really like doing this kind of stuff where they're playing a different number of notes between here and here than to just like 4 per or 8 per measure or something. For some guys you can tell it's really intentional. They've clearly worked some stuff out. Like if you go see Joe Milano live, for instance, I think, and I've heard him talk about some of the stuff he does. He kind of divides the time up in different ways, and he actually kind of keeps like a different time with his feet while the rhythm section is playing. And if you see him kind of like shuffling all around the stage when he's playing, I think that's what he's doing. Like, because he was talking about like he might just tap his foot like at a half note, like I play this way, and if I tap it as a quarter note, I play this way. But if I tap it like like 5 or 4, then I play this way. And I thought that was a really cool idea. So what I've been doing to try to kind of get that side of my playing together is incorporating doing different times in my scale practice. I practice scales not every day, but quite a bit. And so I can just kind of give you an example. I do this with my mesh notes. So.
Hey Ben.
Yeah.
Before you start, are you gonna want to use the board for anything? Or are you gonna just
I don't think so. I mean,
okay.
I guess we get into some.
Okay. If you want, I could bring it up.
Okay. I don't know. We'll see, but not just yet.
Okay.
So I would put the metronome on something pretty slow, like here's like 8. And so there's a lot of different ways you can think about just this as a tempo, right? I mean, that could be a whole note or a half note or a quarter note. And that's kind of how we think about tempo. I think a lot of times it's like that. And when you say it like that, it sounds like way too simple, right? But you can also, so I'll try to break the scale down into different tempos related to this tempo. So I'll start off by playing 4 notes per beat, and then I'll play a scale with 5 notes per beat, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I usually skip 11 because it's hard for me, and 12, 14, and 16. And then I try to think of it not in groups of like 5 necessarily, but like as a more binary line, like you would just play like a bebop line or something. You know, in groups of 2 and 4, but it's at a different tempo, really. So you can think of it as like a group of 5 or 7 or something, or you can think of it just as, you know, like you would play a scale but at a different tempo, but relating it to this time. So hopefully I won't screw it up. So I'll just take like a basic scale exercise, and so I'll start off just, you know, just 4. Oh no, that's 2, right? You can pick any scale pattern that you want, it doesn't matter. And so then I'll just go into 5, and I try to do it pretty quickly so that I kind of get used to shifting in and out of it at different times. So. So you get the idea. And it's a pretty simple exercise that you can do, and I think for me it really helps. It helps me change the way I think about playing at different tempos over, or superimposing a time over another time, you know. And it's just one of the things that I think it helps me do is just just get really comfortable with hearing like a time in one tempo and playing in a different tempo, and not really thinking about it that way, but just thinking like here's again just a different rhythm that I can play, you know. So does that make sense, everybody? Anybody have any questions about that? Okay, see you guys later. So I mean, so I will do that like maybe 2 or 3 times a week or something. But yeah.
I'm just like curious, what's like the craziest you could go with that? Like, does that?
Yeah, I mean, there's no limit, right?
No, okay.
And I think the more I practice doing this intentionally, the more freedom I have when I'm actually soloing. I'm not like thinking about like I'm playing 5 notes now, you know. But I'll kind of just go into a different tempo sometimes, just playing a lick that's in my head, but like I might think of it as like slightly slower, slightly faster or something. And a couple of times, I'm not really in the habit of transcribing myself a ton, but I have done it a few times because I played something, I heard it back and like, well, what the heck was that anyway? So, so like one thing I did recently was like it was like a group of 13, but it was like it was, you know, it was an 8-note pattern, but it was like in like 13 over 4, I guess, essentially. So I mean, you know, there's no limit to it. That's what's really fascinating about it to me. You know, that's why I kind of wonder why we don't spend more time thinking about it. There's just so many possibilities, and it really frees up your playing, I think. Anybody else?
I was wondering if you even apply that exercise to maybe chunking a piece, maybe if you're transcribing a solo, and maybe you want to take a certain piece and then apply with the same tempo. Do you do something like that also?
I think I know what you mean. So like taking things out of the solo that you're transcribing and working on that, like as a pattern.
Precisely.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the next logical step, right? You take that same concept and you apply it to all your licks that you're working on, whatever you're doing, like 2/5 thing, vocabulary. And then also sometimes I'll just put on like a play along, and just play a tune that I know really well, you know, but just try to force myself to play in those different tempos over that tune. And that sounds really forced when you do it that way. It doesn't sound great, but it does teach your brain to be able to do it, I think. So then when you slip into it, just because you're hearing it in your solo, then it sounds more natural. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Well, if you guys don't have much questions on that, I mean, we can talk about anything, you know. We got arrangers here. Yeah, quite a few, right? Yeah, so I mean, if you have any stuff you'd like to talk about range-wise, yeah.
Might as well start with, what's your composition process?
Okay, so composing, I kind of separate composing and arranging in my mind. Like to me, they're almost two completely different things. You know, so I don't know if I really have a process necessarily. I guess my process is just make myself sit down and do it, you know. I mean, you can sit down at the piano or whatever your instrument is that you like to work with, or you know, if you like to do it on your head. I think that could be a good way to do it too. But I usually sit at the piano and I'll just play a note, you know, and then I'll play another note, and then I'll see if something develops from that I find interesting. A lot of times, or I'll just play some chords and try moving them around to see, you know, just how they all relate to each other and how one chord sounds going to another chord. I mean, you can spend all day doing that, you know, and you know, sometimes you come up with something that you want to make a song out of, and sometimes you don't, but you get, you know, you just get more familiar with those sounds and the way things move around. What really fascinates me sometimes is when I'm doing that, like I come up with something that I can't really define, you know, that sounds neat. What is this? What would you even call that? Like, our nomenclature doesn't really account for everything, you know. So that's one thing, but sometimes like I'll do something more intentional, like I'll say I want to write this sort of tune, like with this kind of groove, you know, and I might start with just a groove, like a drum groove or a bass line or something in my head, and then try to come up with the melodic stuff that makes sense for that. That's kind of more challenging for me, I guess, but I mean, sometimes I need something I need like a foothold, like something to get me started, you know, because I was just talking about this with somebody yesterday, maybe you do, but like if you, you know, if you wait for inspiration to strike before you write a tune, you just won't write any tunes. I mean, you might write one, you know, and that might maybe be your later doing. So when everything kind of shut down last year, I just decided like I'm gonna write more. I got time to do it. I like to do it. I'm just gonna sit down every day. I do it best in the morning. I think I'm kind of fresh and I haven't heard music yet, and my ears aren't full of stuff. Just sit down and do something. You know, just write something. You know, and it's been really great. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time doing that. Maybe an hour. You know, if I'm really onto something, maybe 2 hours. And usually when I'm writing something for the first time, I'll just jot down like a little sketch, and then I just leave it, you know, and I kind of let it stew for a while. And sometimes it takes a long time, and sometimes I don't ever come back to it. One of the tunes we're doing in concert tonight, Interesting Times, I wrote, that was like actually the first thing I sat down and wrote when I decided I was going to do that. And I just came up with a bass line and a little bit of melody. And I was like, oh, this seems like it might be something, and I just put it away, and I came back and scribbled on it here and there, you know. And then it was actually almost a year later before I decided to do anything with it, and big things right out of it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think your subconscious might work on stuff more effectively than your conscious mind sometimes, you know. So just setting stuff aside and then picking it back up later sometimes is really helpful for composition for me. Yeah, back here.
Yeah, so along those same lines, I'm wondering if you get going, well, let me just describe it as replaced to me. Sometimes if I get going writing something, I feel like I can't stop, and then all of a sudden my whole weekend's gone.
Yeah.
Because I just like power through it, and that is pretty fatiguing for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like mentally and physically, and I don't think it's very sustaining for me if I want to do more. So how do you keep the creative, like even if you feel like you have momentum but you just need to stop?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's an issue I think a lot of us deal with, because I think jazz musicians tend to be a little obsessive. And, I've had that same issue, and in fact, after I'd been married for a short while, and I'd written a couple of charts, and doing that, like spending like 4 days just writing chart, and my wife referred to herself as a chart widow to one of her friends. I think it's time to make a change. You know? I want to stay married. So I think for me, I had to kind of come to grips with the fact that like it's not. I'm going to be creative tomorrow too. You know, I'm not limited to that one space of time. You know, and I had to kind of force myself to do it. Just like, okay, this is it for me. I'm tired. I'm not going to write anything useful probably. I would find that too. Like sometimes I would come back the next day and I'd just erase like half of the stuff I did the day before because I was worn out and I wasn't writing good stuff. So, but I mean, just, you know, let yourself be creative the next day, and it's like an appetite, you know. If you run it today, I mean, you know, there's another one right behind it, right? Like Seinfeld says. So So I think it's the same thing. I mean, maybe some days you feel more creative than others, you know, but it's not going to go away, you know. And I really don't think it's that hard to sustain a line of thinking about something from day to day. So if you can kind of get yourself into a place where you're comfortable writing like regularly at a certain time, maybe for me, like schedule stuff really helps. You know, schedule. It's like doing that thing first thing in the morning is really good for me. And there may be times when you just have to crunch and get something done. That's that is what it is. But if you can like do it like regularly instead of doing a whole big band chart in 2 or 3 days, you know, take 2 weeks and just work on it for like an hour here and there. You know. I know sometimes it's easier said than done, but it's not that you're not capable of doing it. It's just that you're like, I gotta do it. You know, I think probably if you're like me. So you just have to make yourself. Yeah, right.
I have 2 questions. The first is kind of related, and it's how do you know when a song, a chart, and arrangement is done? Like how do you make yourself decide like, okay, there's no more I can add to this, or there's no more I can edit this to make it any better? And then also, how do you know whether an old idea is worth revisiting or reworking, like worth the trouble, or if it? I'll have that. Sorry, that's a lot.
Okay, no, that's
stick with that first one.
Yeah, I think the answer to both of those questions is, do I like it? You know, that's the kind of the easy answer. But yeah, so if something's done, I mean, I don't know. It's you kind of just quit at some point, right? I mean, if you got something that goes all the way from here to here, I mean, I don't write like start at the intro and write anything like front to back. You know, like for me, like I try to get like something. If I'm doing a big band arrangement, I'll try to get some overarching idea of what I want to do, sort of shape wise, and then I'll try to get something in every bar. Like it could just be like a chord or like a little snatch of melody or something, you know. And so I kind of have a general idea of what I want to do, and then after that, it's kind of just a puzzle, right? You just put it all together. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, sometimes you can get another idea and you want to put that in the chart too, and you know, sometimes it's cool. Sometimes it doesn't work and you just erase it. That's another thing I think for an arranger or a writer, you have to really come to grips with the fact that not every idea you have is a good idea, you know, and that you don't have to hold on to everything. And I think that kind of comes back to that same idea about, you know, you're gonna be creative tomorrow too. So learn to let stuff go if it's not working for you. I mean, for me, like if I write a song, I don't find it interesting, then nobody else is gonna find it interesting, you know. Like I gotta be kind of excited about it, you know. It's gotta be something I would like to listen to. Not just, I don't just think it's good because I wrote it, you know. Like if I hear it and I'm like, I like that, I would listen to that. Did I answer both your questions? I'm not sure.
Yeah, mostly. It was less on the arranging side, more of like coming up with like original stuff. I have a problem with like writing something and then I'll get like maybe a third of the way through and then I don't have any more ideas for it, so I put it away. And then like years later, I'll come back to it and be like, maybe I should finish this, but then I can't remember how I was thinking.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Maybe you got to a point where you were run out of ideas anyway, so just write a new idea. You know, you're not gonna just do something new. You know, just write anything. You know, see if you like it.
Yeah.
Try stuff out. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with putting stuff away and bringing it out years later. Actually, I keep my stuff in a pretty organized file, like and backed up on separate drives and stuff by year, and I can just go through and kind of like listen to little bits of things that I put in finale. So when I was writing songs for my last record, I was going back through to kind of see if there's anything I wanted to flesh out a little bit and arrange for the quintet. And I came across a tune that I didn't remember at all, you know. I was like, it's kind of cool, but it needs some work, so I just broke it out and started picking at it, you know. I do kind of picking stuff, you know. Like sometimes it kind of just takes me a while to just do little changes here and there, kind of tweak stuff. And yeah, for me, like sometimes some things can be like too obvious or too ordinary sometimes for me, you know, and like I get kind of bored easily, I guess. So if I'm listening to it, I'm like, you know, then I just try to throw something weird in there, like just move the whole thing into like a different key, you know, like over the same harmony or something, and just see what it sounds like, you know, just experiment and play. I mean, music it's a sandbox, you know, for us, you know. I mean, you can do anything. wrong answers.
Do you
There's a couple of wrong
Okay.
answers.
Just
Just two, yeah. Yeah, no 11 on top for a minor major chord, right?
correct, no natural 11, yes.
Didi, yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, kind of going off of what's been said, and then going back to the rhythm thing. I noticed in listening to some of your more recent stuff that you've been really experimental, even in your melodies, with adding all this rhythmic variety to your charts, and then it really coming out in your soloing. But even just in preparing stuff for the 1 o'clock and looking at the Black Nile solo, where you have these displaced triplets and you have these 5/4 kind of hemiolic ideas. I guess I'm wondering, like, how long has the concept of rhythm been going around in your head, and how long have you been like actively trying to mess with it versus maybe you thought it was cool for this one thing 20 years ago, and then now you're really digging into it?
I think, yeah, it's definitely slowly evolved. I mean, I think what you said there was exactly right. Like, I just was playing a lot of salsa gigs and like really fascinated by these cats were doing just on spontaneously on the gig. It's like, man, I don't have any of that. I want some of that.
Yeah.
So trying to incorporate that into a salsa arrangement seemed natural. But yeah, I mean, just the more I kind of practice it and just shed it intentionally, the more natural it feels to me. And so it does come out in writing and improvising a lot more. So I start to hear ideas more that way. Sometimes I'll do something just to as an experiment. I mean, like a lot of times, just see, does this work? Or what happens if I do this? It's like I don't know if anybody reads Kurt Vonnegut, but he had like a kind of this mindset that he always said, like, if this, then what? What now? So I kind of like think about music that way too. Like, treat this thing and do something weird here, and then what? What do you do with that? What am I going to do with that as an improviser? If I write this song, I'm going to have to play over it. So, if you take it through to the end, like, how am I going to arrange this in a way that makes sense, and how am I going to blow over it, and how are other people going to respond to it when they're playing, and how's the whole group going to respond? Yeah, it's a great question.
You're a whole lot better at this than I am. So, but my question is, like, do you ever have a piece that you're like working on, like an original composition, and you put like 4 or 5 hours into it, like a good significant amount of time, and you just hate it? Like, it's the worst thing you've ever heard. Like, is it like, do I put it away in like a graveyard for later? Do I delete it? Do I start over? Do I try to fix what I don't like? Like, what is the process for something if you don't like it?
I mean, it kind of depends on your deadline, right? You got to write something for a specific gig, and you got to just get it done. I guess you got to power through it. In that case, you go with the last version and fix what's wrong with it, and try to make it workable. But man, like I say, I put stuff away for years sometimes and get it out later. Because sometimes there's usually something that's interesting about it. That there's a reason you wrote it down in the first place. And maybe just all the rest of the stuff is garbage, and you can just trash it and just take that one thing that you like and build something new on it. But yeah, I mean, putting stuff away, thinking about it, sleeping on it, getting it out later, picking it and teasing it until the music that you really hear comes out. And I don't know. Sometimes it takes a while for the music to come out the way it's supposed to. And you can't always force it. Sometimes you can get away with it. But I think music sounds best when it goes where it wants to go. It has its own life. A melody shapes itself, and then it implies the harmony that goes along with it. So, I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
I was wondering, when you're writing and what's your process when you try to figure out if it works or if it doesn't? Do you try to work all on your head writing or on the piano? Do you try to hear it in your head? Do you use playback? Do you bring it to a live band to hear how it sounds?
Yes, all those things.
All those things?
Yeah, all those things, yeah.
In a specific order?
I mean, so I do sit at the piano a lot and kind of start the germs of the ideas there a lot. Sometimes I don't, though. Like, I'll just hear something and I go put it into the computer first, and then I'll use the piano like to work out some of the harmony and stuff. Sometimes, I mean, a few times I've just sat and like written something on the computer and just arranged it on the computer too, without the piano or anything. a little different that way, but it's not, it's not any better or worse, I guess. But yeah, I mean, so if I get something kind of like not arranged, but like almost composed, like where it feels like a song, then I'll print it out and I'll play with my trombone and see if I like it. Sometimes it's way too much work, to play, and then you have to consider that stuff too, what like this last record I did, when I was trying to prep for it, I was like, I can't make it through all the songs. I can't play like these 10 songs back to back, and I just don't have enough chops to do it. So in that case, like, how am I going to play them on a gig? I can play this whole record on a gig, and I can't because it's too hard. So then I wrote some easier tunes, and that makes those in. But yeah, all those things, and then yeah, just book a gig somewhere or get us together at people's houses and just get friends that like to that like to play new music, and also play their music, so support each other. But yeah, I mean that's really that's the laboratory right there. Yeah.
Assuming you've been through this type of challenge many times, but when you feel like you're in a rut on a very consistent basis and you're not satisfied with your writing or your playing, what do you do to get yourself unstuck?
So, I mean, if I'm not satisfied with what I'm writing, I stop writing, and if I don't feel like playing, I don't play. I don't have any problem with taking a day off the trombone, and sometimes I need it. My face can be pretty beat up, honestly, sometimes, and sometimes I need an entire day to recuperate to be able to play at all. And usually, if my chops feel good, I play good. And if I don't feel good, I don't play well. And there's just no sense in beating your head into the wall, in my opinion. I mean, it's easy to stand here and say that, but I mean, you're in school and you've got gigs and stuff, and you have to prepare in a certain amount of time for those things, and you have to be able to do it without destroying your chops. For me, I think that the ruts I get into are usually tied to my physical condition. So I try to exercise and not drink too much the night before I have to give a clinic. And keep my chops in shape and not not abuse them. And if I'm doing that, and my chops are like stupid stuff, like your chops getting chapped, like for me, for a trombone player, it's huge, Like if I got chapped chops, I'm not gonna play an interesting solo, because I'm gonna be thinking about that, and stuff's not gonna be working right, and I'm gonna be dealing with that stuff, and I don't wanna have to deal with that stuff, so I carry a bag bomb in my pocket. I try to stay in shape enough to be able to breathe well, and wear a mask so I don't get coronavirus. I don't know. do stuff that makes sense to keep yourself healthy, and I think that's the number one thing I think for avoiding those ruts. I mean, sometimes I want to write, and I really would like to get something done now, and it's just not happening for me. Walking away is just the best thing I can do. You had something.
Yeah. How do you deal with things that you can't control? So like before a gig, you're taking care of your health. You're making sure you're not drinking too much the night before, stuff like that.
Exactly.
And you get to the gig, and there's like issues with the venue or issues with the band if you haven't like rehearsed or it's not your band or something like that. How do you deal with making sure that doesn't affect your performance in the actual gig?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, because if something's beyond your control, it's beyond your control, right? I don't know. I think I try to block out externalities as much as I can. Maybe the monitor doesn't sound like you sound, and that might change the way you approach your horn or something. It can really it can mess you up if you're not expecting it, I guess. I don't know. For me, like that kind of stuff all causes me some stress and tension, and like that stuff you can feel in your body, So for me, sometimes like I get tight on the shoulders, like the neck, and I just have to remember, relax, everything's gonna be okay. You're gonna play music, and if you miss a note, nobody's gonna die, probably. Unless you're Ian Calhoun, maybe. So I don't know. I mean, just take stuff in stride, and also, you know, not every day is going to be the best day, you know. So you do the best you can with what you got, really, you know. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, it's hard to, stuff is going to pop up.
Yeah.
Sometimes I actually, this is kind of funny, like in my own personal practice, I never really talked about this before, but I'll try to like psych myself out sometimes, you know. Like if I'm practicing like a lead part or something, I'll be like, miss, burp, miss, burp, in my head, you know.
Yeah.
Just like, because you know, stuff like that pops in your head when you're playing on a gig, and if, you know, you're not used to dealing with it, then you probably will miss, you know.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the biggest piece of musical or life advice anyone has ever given you?
This guy doesn't ask easy questions. You guys notice that? I think you're cut off now. Man, I don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. Okay, here's one. So when I was a pretty young trombone player, I was just getting started, and I, you know, I had some interest in it. Clearly shown some interest in it, and the guy that started me on the trombone was a band director that was taught band in my school for like 40 years or something. He was kind of a legend for my hometown. He was a trombone player, so and he. This is kind of a funny thing to say to a young kid. He goes, "Ben, like, you can be a good trombone player, or you can be the best trombone player." He's like, "You just have to decide which one you want to do." And I was like, "Well, I guess I'm trying to be the best one." So, you know, I don't know. That's really advice. It's a strange thing to tell a kid, but it's stuck with me my whole life, you know. So, I don't know. That's one. Oh wait, I got you already, Jackson. How about you back there? Yeah.
Oh, I would say this is a question. This is a question that was asked a couple days ago that actually really stuck with me, and I kind of want to hear your take on it. So, they had asked, would you say there is not really a lack of jazz trombonists today? Maybe just like less than other instruments. And if you do think there is, then would you say that makes it slightly, give or take, easier to get yourself out there, I guess, compared to like saxophonists? And how have you like, trying to word this right, like helped push yourself, like market yourself, I guess, into like, I'd say the upper echelon of the jazz community, I guess.
Well, thanks for that. I'll take that. Yeah, that, you know, I don't know, man. It's tough. You know, it's like it's not an easy thing to get into playing jazz trombone. You know, I think there are lots of great jazz trombone players right now. I mean, you got Nick sitting right here. I mean, Ellie Mason, Marshall Jokes. I mean, these guys are just amazing. You know,
Right.
There's you know, you go on. There's lots. You know, I think it's kind of the same for trombonists as for other instruments in that nobody really kind of does one thing anymore. You know, I don't think, maybe nobody ever did, but I mean, you gotta play like the best you can and keep that up like all the time. Probably you're gonna have to write, you know, which is something I enjoy anyway. So to me, it's not a struggle. But teaching, you know, it just like there's you know, anything you can do. Like I have a little publishing company, you know. I don't make a lot of money with it, but I make a little bit, you know, that helps, you know.
Right.
And that's something that I enjoy too. So, yeah. I mean, as far as getting my name out, I mean, you know, I don't know. As a trombone player, like, how much do you really ever get your name out? I mean, trombone shorty, maybe James Pankow. I mean, how many other trombone players like can the average person name? But I mean, for me, I've been very lucky. I had a gig where I traveled all over the country and around the world a little bit, and got to play in front of a lot of people with a really good band. And for me, that was really helpful because I met a lot of people, you know, and recording records. I think is probably one of the best things that you can do to help get your stuff out there. Because I mean, otherwise, I mean, how are people going to hear you? You know, I mean, you got to be out playing gigs and recording music, you know, and stuff out. So, I don't know, let's leave it there for now, maybe I'll come back to it. Jackson.
Yeah, how does your arranging style affect your trombone craft and vice versa? Because I know sometimes when I write, or I've recently started writing more than I have in the past, and it's changing the way I play, and you know,
Yeah.
it kind of feeds itself.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I think that some of the players that I like the best are the ones that have a really integrated concept, like with all their, you know, their writing and their like their time feel and their sound concept and those stuff all like goes together and makes this whole unique package, you know. So yeah, I think it all affects every aspect affects the other, you know, and then I think I think the more of that stuff you do and the more unique your sound will get, you know. Writing can take a lot of time, you know, especially if you do it like you do it, you know, where you sit down and spend like 2 straight days not doing anything else. But and then when you're doing that, you're not practicing, are you? And so and finding balance can be hard, you know. So when I'm writing a lot, I don't practice as much. If I have something big coming up I really need to practice for, I kind of put writing on the back burner, you know. So just as far as time wise, they affect each other that way, you know. But yeah, I mean, stuff I shut on my horn comes out in my melody writing and stuff that I'm, you know, I think same vice versa, you know. I don't know, what did you have something specific in mind there? Or?
No, I was just curious if it, you know, changes the things you enjoy practicing, the things you want to get better at, and then as a result, it changes the things that come out of the pen.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and write stuff that is fun to play for you, you know. I mean, that is a direct effect right there, right? Or something that you really want to work on that you're not good at, you know. And that's a really good tool for me. That's something that I've tried to use is like writing something that I know is going to be challenging for me. So then I have to work on that thing and get good at it, you know. So yeah. Who has gone? Yeah, I think both of you guys. How about you, right here?
I was just gonna ask what you would tell someone if they wanted to start writing or arranging but have just like zero experience. So yeah, what would your advice be for someone like that?
I'd say get some stat paper and a pencil and sit down at the piano and play a note and write that down and then play another note, write that one down. No, I mean, even if you don't think of yourself as a writer, I mean, you're a musician, you know what music sounds like. So, and we're improvising musicians, which means you're composing every day, you know. Find something that you played, like that was neat, and write it down, you know, and then explore the way that melody fits over different harmonies, you know, just play like, you can, like, a few notes like a melody, just like a little motif or something, and then just play every chord you can think of underneath it and see what it sounds like, you know. Even if it doesn't seem like it makes sense, you know, just see what it feels like, you know. But yeah, I love that the experimental aspect of it, you know, just sitting down and just play and just play with music and have fun with it and just make sounds that you like, you know, that you want to hear. If you like it and it excites you, there's a chance that other people will like it too, you know, and then it'll work. I think so. Just have fun, you know. It's nobody's life's at stake. It's just fun. It's what we do. We play a game for a living. You know, it's not a bad way to go. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions about the airman and note.
Okay.
What was it like playing lead trombone under Brian McDonald? Did that make your job easier or harder as compared to other lead trumpet players?
Yeah, I mean, playing lead trombone with Brian McDonald behind you is like a dream. You know, it's the best case scenario. You know, it doesn't get any better than that. Like, he's super accurate. I mean, everybody knows he has great high notes, but he's very, very accurate. His time is really good. His pitch is really good. He sight reads really well. He's very consistent. I know what he's gonna do, you know, almost all the time. He's really easy to blend with, and yeah, it's you know, it's fantastic. It's great. Everybody should be able to get a chance to do that sometime.
Yeah.
But you know, yeah, unfortunately, you're in a place where that's, you know, playing with great people is a real possibility, you know, like on a day-to-day basis. So even that was a two-part question you said?
Yeah, the other one is, what is one memorable moment with, like, in your time in the Airman and No?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, lots, you know, I mean, it was in 23 years, and we played some really great jazz festivals. Detroit was a really nice one. We played like the Midwest Conference and IJE and GIN and all that stuff. You know, when you're playing for crowds that like are really into music, that's always super exciting. You know, we would do stuff geared towards the veterans. They would bring groups of veterans into to DC and show them around monuments and stuff. And then they'd bring them into to the band building, and we would play like a set of Glenn Miller music, which is not my favorite music, frankly. But I mean, seeing the looks on those veterans' faces when you're playing is pretty special. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Going overseas a couple times with the band was fun. You know, I mean, really the best moments are like when you're on stage and somebody's out there just playing the greatest solo. You're like, this is the greatest thing, you know. And if you don't catalog those, you know, there may or may not be a recording of it, you know. But those are the highlight moments, really. Just somebody played a great solo. DJ.
Yeah, so I don't know how many people know this, and hopefully I don't like embarrass you, but I know we've talked about it, but like you actually did a double major here as a music education and jazz studies, and I was wondering how the music ed degrees like impacted your either your playing or just your philosophies on playing. If you could talk about that.
Yeah, I guess working on the music ed degree made me really realize I wanted to be a performer. So it's very focusing in that way. I think the downside of it was I didn't really enjoy that part of my time here, I would say, and I didn't find it to be that useful at the time. But it was mostly because that's not really what I wanted to be doing. And I think it kind of put me off teaching for like a number of years. And since I was in the Note and I had a job where I was getting paid and busy anyway, I didn't have to teach, and so I didn't, you know, for a long time. And now I've come back into it the last several years, and I do enjoy it. And I just, you know, it's a great thing to be doing. But yeah, so I guess it had a positive and negative effect on me. And Nick?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, because a lot of people ask me sometimes, like, who are some really great lead trombone players that would model your style and sound after, and I often bring up your name, so I was curious, what are some influences to you in your concept, or maybe that have changed over the 20 years you were in the band?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, for lead trombone role models, I don't even know if I know all their names, you know. I mean, I've listened to thousands of hours of the Basie band, you know, and I love that trombone section. It was just so punchy and tight, and the way the articulations are so crisp, and the specific way they articulate the short notes on the ends of phrases and stuff. So I try to model a lot of that style playing after, you know, whoever it is on whatever recordings. I don't even know who all it is. I think when I was younger, probably it was, especially here, we were playing a lot of Stan Kenton music back then. So like a lot of Stan Kenton guys, Bobby Burgess, and yeah, I guess yeah, I don't even know those guys' names either. Yeah, Steve Wiest. I mean, you know, because I heard, you know, Steve playing with the Maynard band on Live in San Francisco on that record. It was like, wow. Yeah, so I mean, kind of, I guess the guys that, you know, obviously I've made equipment choices, you know, and have a sound concept that's geared towards a certain, you know, lineage of players, I guess. But yeah, just from checking out recordings and hearing like, you know, live bands. I mean, of course, here, I mean, you know, there's always going to be somebody better, you know, like like somebody's got something that you don't have, you know. So I mean, I just try to soak that stuff up, you know. I mean, all this year there were a lot of great lead trombone players here. Craig Marshall was a great lead trombone player. He was actually really influential for me as a he'd always come when I was playing lead. He'd come and sit and listen to me and give me feedback. Having guys like that around is really great. Tom Brantley was another guy that was here. It's a great trombone player. I mean, I sat in the note for 14 years playing third with Joe Jackson playing lead. Joe's a fantastically trombone player. So I definitely learned a lot from him. Yeah, Matt Neese from the Army Blues also great. I think we have slightly different approaches to the horn. I think, but it's definitely something to be learned from listening to a guy like that. I don't know. What about you? Who else you got? Yeah.
Well, I usually say, like, take Nash and Herbie Green.
Oh, yeah.
Some names that come to my mind. And then I was always like Lawrence Brown played lead with the Ellington.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and that's such a unique thing too.
Yeah.
It's like if you play Ellington, you almost have to try to copy it. I think just it's so specific to the music. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Check out everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're
Oh wait, no, you're cut off. Right? Who else? Oh, yeah.
I have a couple questions about just the process of making a big band record. So, specifically how you deal with rehearsals, whether you have more rehearsals and are workshopping some body of music, or if you try to come with it all the way prepared so that you're not asking people to do a bunch of rehearsals. Also, personnel of the band, how do you go about hiring? Because obviously you play with a bunch of people at work and you use some of them in your band and you don't use others. And you also bring in people like Chris Potter. And so, how do you go about contracting out the band and how you deal with the sessions leading up to it and those parts of the process I'm curious about.
That is a great question. Unfortunately, my answer is probably not going to help that much. I was very fortunate that I had my own lab band for to experiment on all the time. And if I bring stuff into the note, we would rehearse it and usually play it on gigs and stuff. And so I was able to hear stuff a lot, make corrections, and just kind of figure out what was working and what wasn't. Get feedback from Brian McDonald to tell me, my new trouble parts are too hard. Is that true, William?
Yep.
But, that's important because you gotta look at those guys. For me, like just and you're fortunate that you have that resource here now too. You can do that and bring stuff in and get played. Take advantage of that as much as you possibly can. Make friends with people that play all the different instruments that you're trying to write for, so that you can just take and say, hey, does this make sense? Just show them and then have them play it. Because for me, like one of the things like that is a constant issue for me is getting the right tessitura for the right sound for the amount of tension I want in the chart at a time. So just taking it and having somebody play it for you is really helpful. I only rehearsed. We did 2 recording sessions for my big band record, and we rehearsed once for each one. Some of the music, a lot of the guys had played, and some of it was brand new, and some of it nobody had played. Fortunately, with those guys, it was enough. We were able to do 2 or 3 takes of everything and get the best stuff in the studio. Selecting musicians. I mean, I just know a lot of great musicians. And I use some of the guys from the note. Honestly, I just love the way they play, and I think they were the best guys for the spot. And there were other guys that I hadn't played with as much, but I wanted to play with more. And so I called those guys. And sometimes there's a little bit of bruised egos over that stuff. That's hard to deal with, because it's hard to tell somebody, it's not that I don't want to play with you, I just want to play with him, today, maybe next time it's, and that's a drag, because, we've all been on the other side of it, you don't get called and somebody else gets called. Hiring Chris was just, he's one of my favorite musicians, so, and I made him an offer, I had no idea whether it was too high, too low, or what, but they accepted, and he came down, and it was one of my musical highlights from my entire career. It was great. And one of the most fun things about it was just he was kind of on some stairs in the studio, right above the sax section. And so when he was playing the solo, they were all going Did that cover everything?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, unfortunately, we're out of time. Actually, a little over time. I do want to say 2 things before we thank Ben. Taylor I've asked Taylor to do an official interview with Ben later also, because obviously he does ask great questions. So that'll be available for you. And Ben's really nice. So I'm sure you could email him or speak to him later today, before the concert, after the concert, to continue to impart such wisdom. But another hand for Ben Patterson.